Chapter 10, One Mouse is Missing. An hour passed, then two. The cemetery was silent except for small squeaks of conversation here and there. Most of the church mice were unaware of the mission. They were simply waiting for the meeting that Hildegard was to call, waiting to hear final instructions before their return to the church where they had lived all their lives. They chatted among themselves, recounting what they had done during their 2-day vacation in the outdoors. There had been some close calls. One mouse had barely escaped the talons of a swooping hawk. Another had encountered a snake and scampered quickly away. A third had been munching on a bouquet of asters when a woman appeared quite unexpectedly with a watering can and doused him while he cowered, hidden only by a leaf. One by one, they described their adventures and praised each other's outdoor courage. But in the mossy crevice at the base of the statue, Hildegard, Roderick, and Ignatius waited silently with increasing apprehension. They had no way to know the time, but they watched clouds across the moon and the shadows lengthened around them. Not far off, an owl called, but they ignored it. An owl was nothing to them now. They had far larger concerns. "What if none of them returned safely?" Roderick whispered at last. "Some will, surely. We knew some might perish. That was the risk. But certainly some will get back here." Hildegard tried to reassure him, though she herself was very frightened. She had been mouse mistress for a long time, but never before had she had to send some of her best, most valued mice into a life-threatening situation. "Want me to go look?" Ignatius asked. "I could just go to the cemetery edge and see if there's any sign of them." Hildegard sighed. "No, the others will see you and start asking questions. We'll just stay here. Wait, what's that sound?" She stood on tiptoe and parted the ferns. Through the dark of the cloudy night, she squinted and could see shrubbery moving. She could see a familiar-looking ear. Her nose and tail both twitched. "Marvin?" she whispered loudly. Then she turned to the others. "I think it's Marvin." Indeed it was. Marvin had been one of the 52 volunteers. Now he stumbled forward, panting, and collapsed in the little mossy shade. He looked completely exhausted, but his whiskers were vibrating triumphantly. "We did it," he whispered. "All 52? Are you all safe?" Hildegard's heart was beating rapidly. "Not sure," he told her. "I finished first, and there wasn't time to check on everyone. But most were right behind me. I know. Listen." They could hear the approaching mice now and could tell from the stumbling sound of the small paws that they were no longer marching warriors. They were spent, depleted, breathing hard, some even whimpering. But one after another they appeared and reported in. In a few minutes, the area at the base of the statue was crowded with sprawled, panting church mice. "Count them," Hildegard instructed Ignatius and Roderick. 1, 2, 3. She could hear them muttering the numbers as they moved among the heaps of heavy-breathing mice. 29, 30. Finally, they came back to her. 51, Ignatius reported. "Maybe I counted wrong," he added uncertainly. "I am getting old." Then Roderick returned, looking sad. 51, he said. "I counted twice. I'm sorry." "Who's missing?" Hildegard felt she must ask, though she didn't want to hear the answer. "Trina," they said together. "Oh, no, it couldn't be. Brave, strong Trina." Hildegard leapt to her feet and strode out among the recovering mice. "Who saw Trina last? Where was she?" she demanded. Many didn't know. "It was so confusing in there. I couldn't tell one mouse from another," one said. "So dangerous," added another. "And dark," several murmured. "Jean?" Hildegard asked. "Where's Jean?" "She's over here," someone called. She followed the voice. Mice pointed with their paws, and she found Jean huddled on the edge of the crowd, weeping. "Did you see her caught in a glue trap?" Hildegard asked Jean. She was remembering that Ignatius said there was a way, a difficult way, to rescue one mouse from a glue trap. He had even described the method to her. It sounded awful. Jean shook her head. No, she was so careful. She didn't get caught in a trap. "Where did you see her last, then?" "She was right behind me. We were all finished, and we were headed out to return here, but—" She lowered her head and sobbed slightly. "But what?" "She went back. She said she remembered one important thing we should do, and before I could stop her, she scurried back. I thought she'd catch up, but—" Jean looked up and peered around the group in the darkness. "She didn't make it, did she?" "She hasn't made it yet, that's all." Hildegard patted Jean on the head. "Listen, all of you," she called. Regaining their strength gradually, the mice looked up toward her. "We have several hours of night left," she told them. "I'm going to look for Trina. If the sky begins to lighten—" "Yes?" they asked. "That's the time that all of the mice must move back into St. Bartholomew's. If I'm not back, then—" She looked over at her two friends. "Roderick and Ignatius will call for the gathering and give instructions. Then they'll lead you back in." "Excuse me?" A haughty voice came from nearby ferns. "I believe I'll be the one to do that." "Don't count on it, Lucretia," Hildegard told her. Then she dashed as fast as she could to the church to find and perhaps rescue Trina. After wriggling in under the door and entering the narthex, Hildegard paused and listened. No sound. "Trina?" she called, in as loud a squeak as she could manage. Nothing. She tiptoed forward, listening. Down the center aisle of the nave, there would be no traps there, no poison. This was the place where the congregation walked, the humans, looking for their seats each Sunday morning. Silence. The traps would be elsewhere, she knew, for the great X chose carefully the places where mice, pests, rodents, would be. There would be glue traps in all the obvious places, under the sink, in the sexton's closet, all the rest of their favorite haunts. Hildegard sighed. There was so little time left. She must find Trina, likely stuck, glued into place. Maybe her tiny sweet mouth was glued, and that's why she could give no cry for help. And then attempt to do the rescue procedure, so very difficult, that Ignatius had described. But where to look first? She scampered down the aisle, turned right at the chancel, and hurried through the south transept. Then, from the dark hallway, she heard, suddenly, a small noise from Father Murphy's office. She froze. Surely the priest would not be here in the middle of the night. The sound came again, a small huffing of breath, then a click. Hildegard scurried to the office door and found it slightly ajar. She peeked inside. There was the telephone book on top of the desk. She could see it in the moonlight. The framed photograph of Father Murphy's mother, the stacked magazines. Click. "There, got it," squeaked a tiny voice. She recognized it with enormous relief as Trina's. "Trina," she called. "Over here," Trina called back. "Is that you, Hildegard? What are you doing here? I'm on the first shelf by the crossword puzzle book." Hildegard remembered that book. Father Murphy often paused between appointments and worked on a puzzle. Quickly she scurried across the carpeting and made her way up, clinging to the draperies, to the shelf, where she found Trina tugging at a small plastic box. "What on earth are you doing? We're all frantic about you." "They left things a bit of a mess in here," Trina explained. "Of course it was awfully hard, and there was so little time. Jeremiah got the card box open." She gestured to the box, the lid to which she had just clicked into place, and he gave out the cards, 52, just like you said. He saved one for himself, of course. "I got the Queen of Diamonds," she added. Then we all set off, each with our card. And it worked, just like you predicted. Such a clever idea, Hildegard. Of course, that's why you're mouse mistress. No one else could possibly have thought of it. "Here, we can jump down now," Trina said. "I'm through in here." "Through with what?" "Just as we were leaving, after such a successful mission," she explained, "I remembered something. I remembered that we had left Father Murphy's card box open, there on the table, with all the cards gone. You know how tidy he is. He would have noticed first thing. And it was so important to keep our presence invisible. That's why I came back, to put the lid back on the box. See? It's all tidied up and back in place. We can go now. I'm sorry I made you anxious." Jean was weeping. "Oh, dear, I told her I'd be careful, but you know Jean, she's a worrier." Together they jumped down to the floor and ran quickly across the carpet and through the crack in the door. Then they pushed it together with all their combined strength until it closed. "Could you just show me one so I can see how it worked?" Hildegard asked. "Of course, on the way out. I have to tell you something, though, Hildegard." "What's that?" They were hurrying along side by side. "We only found 51. Please don't say anything to Jeremiah. He feels terrible. He had the 8 of spades. But we all looked and looked, and we only found 51 glue boards. Finally, so much time had passed, we simply left the 8 of spades in the bushes by the front door. Here, come over here," Trina directed Hildegard to the coat rack in the narthex. "Look right behind where the little opening to the inside of the wall is." Hildegard knew the route well. She had entered and exited so often from that tiny hole. Now she scurried over and looked. Behind the coat rack was a glue board, a smallish rectangle lying on the tile floor where a scurrying church mouse would have undoubtedly have stepped upon it and been caught in such horrible way. "Look," said Trina merrily, and she hopped onto the glue board. "Don't," squealed Hildegard, terrified. "No, it's quite safe. Let's see." Trina looked down. It's the 3 of hearts. I think Malcolm had that one. See what a good job he did? Fitted it perfectly. She danced up and down on the 3 of hearts, which was glued securely over the rectangular trap. Amazing, Hildegard said. I put my queen of diamonds on one in the ladies' room, behind the sink, where the pipe comes in. It wasn't easy, Hildegard, to get the corners straight, but I think we all did a good job. You did indeed. Now let's hurry back. We've got to get everyone moved back in before sunrise. Side by side, gleeful, the 2 church mice wriggled under the front door and scampered down the steps of St. Bartholomew's and into the outdoors. A light rain was beginning to fall.